Welcome to the MoxStars podcast. I am Menace, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Flash.
And a respectable amount of time has passed. Did not hear it.
But it did happen. Flash.
Okay.
What is up, dude?
What is up, man? How's it going? I was not here last week, and I'm back.
No, just check out the episode. It was super sick.
So sick. The sickest episode we've ever done, honestly. Disappointed I missed.
And I didn't even forget to talk about Don Cheadle. I definitely talked about him. I talked about him. He's a great guy.
Boy.
Yeah.
We love Don Cheadle. Big Don Cheadle fans.
Oh, yeah. If you didn't know, this is the #1 podcast for Magic the Gathering, Dr. Pepper, and we might as well just tack Don Cheadle on there. Like, I don't know if there's any other Don Cheadle podcasts out there, but we definitely take the cake.
I mean, I gotta say, unless there's a dedicated Don Cheadle podcast out there, we almost definitely talk about Don Cheadle more than most.
Yeah, it's an alarming amount, but they're like, they have not reached out yet, so the cease and desist.
We talk about Don Cheadle almost as much as he shows up in a supporting role.
Yes.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I wish you would take more main, more like, like be the guy for. Oh
my God.
I love that.
Be amazing.
Like, Reign Over Me. Great movie. Awesome.
That was your first pick out of Don Cheadle films you could have named?
Here we are. Yes, I named it. What's your first pick?
It was not the 9/11 drama Reign Over Me. Maybe Boogie Nights.
All right, if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms, where you can leave us a 5-star review and make us look super duper cool. You can also support us via Patreon, where you can become an official Pepperhead for $3 a month. Have your name turned Dr. Pepper Red on the Discord server, which, by the way, we have a Discord server. Jump in the pool, cannonball in, because with all this new Tarkir stuff, the discussion is gonna stir. You can also support us at the $5 tier, Cherry Vanilla Pepperhead tier. Get a free entry into each of our bi-weekly giveaways. You can join us at the $10 tier, the 2-liter tier. Like definitely Jeremy, Poolboy Barry, UWP Court, and Aaron Becca. And get 2 free entries into each of our bi-weekly giveaways. The crown still very much belongs to Ravenlift, who supports us at...
The hats also belong to Ravenlift.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Just sent off a few more. We've that's our MoxStars Dr. Pepper Lounge access, where you get to, envision yourself having brunch with LeBron and his fake family. Don Cheadle's there. He sits in the corner, though. He's got like that smoking lounge vibe, Strider-esque, from Lord of the Rings.
Ooh, Strider, Ranger of the North.
Yes, before we knew he was Aragorn. So, yeah, that's what Don Cheadle does in the MoxStars Dr. Pepper Lounge. The Tasmanian Devil.
Is he like smoking a pipe with like a shroud?
Yes.
On him?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a corncob pipe too.
Ooh, a corncob pipe. Love it.
Yeah, and he's got his like New York gangster like pinstripe suit on. We also have the Tasmanian Devil, sometimes the Iron Giant. Vin Diesel has been there, and we have the Dr. Pepper French toast. I'll have the recipe online in no time. So it's coming. It's the biggest thing to hit the market since, well, Dr. Pepper Blackberry, which is awesome.
I saw some of that in the store. It's on shelves.
Yeah, it's finally like available to the masses. Before it was like you had to hunt it down. Everyone was super excited trying to get their hands on it, hoarding it, like scalping it off. Can you imagine buying Dr. Pepper?
Cavern Horde Dragons.
Yes, a bunch of Smaugs. All right. On today's episode, we
just made 2 unrelated Lord of the Rings references or Middle Earth references in the span of a minute.
This is like this might be, last week was spicy. This might even be a little spicier. This week's episode.
It's picante for sure.
Absolutely. Speaking of content and us creating content, we are representatives at MagicCon Las Vegas this year. The MoxStars will be at the con as content creators in the creator area. Come check us out. If you are still going to purchase your badge, there's a link in the description below that goes to support all creators, not just the MoxStars, but all creators. Every badge that's purchased through that link goes to show the Wizards of the Coast the value of having creators at the con. So get down there, purchase your badge through the link below, and it benefits us, but it also benefits all of the other people who put their time, energy, and passion into creating Magic the Gathering content. This week, today's episode, we have an interview with ATLAS KULISH. As if you didn't know, ATLAS is one of the top 10 players in the world in cEDH.
One of the top 10 people in the world.
Yes, we love ATLAS, and having him on the show is always such a pleasure because you get to well, the insight of such an incredible Magic player is invaluable, right? And today we're talking about...
It would be like asking Cher, what was it like being in Mamma Mia 2? Here we go again. Like, it's that level of insight.
I was not sure where you're going with Cher, but then when you said Mamma Mia 2, I was like, God. What else is she in? She's in
Moonstruck.
Is she in Burlesque?
She might. I mean, it sounds like something she would be in. She was in
with the
Flash or Mermaids. Aguilera. I forget which one. Mask. Mm-hmm. Great in that.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Honestly, a lot of people have been saying that ATLAS is kind of like the Cher of Magic the Gathering.
He just needs his own Mamma Mia too.
Yes, he does. Yes. Honestly, I've been saying that for years. Like, why is an ATLAS in a ABBA musical? Like, that's got to be the best use of his time.
Oh man. So today we have ATLAS on the show. Super stoked, and it's a great discussion. Like, honestly, we just really the topic is what's wrong with cEDH right now? You know, like, what's going on out there?
Oh, the topic of our podcast every week?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much.
The implied topic of the podcast?
Yeah. What's wrong? Never what's right. But today, part of the show is going to be about what is right. Because yesterday, April Fool's Day, Wizards of the Coast did something right. They surprised us with the coolest secret lair that we've seen in a while. While we have lamented the mechanically unique nature of secret lairs, this one actually is super rad, and it's still available at the time of this recording. So they printed the hell out of this, and it is Secret Lair X Marvel's Deadpool foil. Like, I have the foil edition up. That's the one I bought. So this drop is amazing. This is what Secret Lair drops should be constantly. Like, I think that Wizards of the Coast needs to take the reins from artists saying like, oh, I want to do this card. Oh, I want to do this card. Oh, I want to do this card. And say, no, you should print 4 viable, powerful cards and then one other card. Like, yeah, you can pick one card.
Yeah. Something like that, or the bonus card is your funzy card.
Yeah, right. You know, but like this Deadpool Secret Lair has gas. So let's just lead off with Deadpool himself. Deadpool trading card, 2, a black and a red, legendary creature, mutant mercenary hero.
Which that's a typing that is going to be important in these Marvel sets.
Yeah, yep. So this when those Marvel sets come out with, you know, Spider-Man, whatever, hero will likely have that creature type will likely have support, making this a better card. But as Deadpool enters, you may exchange his text box with and another creature's. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 3 life. You can pay 3, sacrifice this creature. Each other player draws a card. And the flavor text, draw me like one of your French cards. I love that. It's beautiful. The possibilities with this are kind of crazy. People have been brewing and questioning, like what you can do with this, since it is this is a legal card. This will be I didn't think they would do something like that, but yeah, you can exchange a text box now I'm sure they have.
Well, I mean, it's fitting that Deadpool is like fourth wall breaking as a character, and then his mechanic is something, you would more likely associate with an unset.
Yes. Yeah. Even the artwork is fourth wall breaking, since he's using his sword to cut his text box out. So, yeah, it's very clever and layered, and the things that people have been finding with it are, clever and layered. Because yeah,
unlike Deadpool versus Wolverine.
Wait, you mean the Deadpool 3?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that movie was good.
Oh, okay. And the word you're saying is here's what I'm saying. Not layered for sure. That film definitely has text. I don't know about subtext.
It's constant quips. It's just like, that's the entire dialogue is just one long, very exhausting quip.
It's like a water bug. That movie is not even surface level. You're skimming above the surface.
Yeah. Yep. But I thought they did it in somewhat clever ways. The reintroduction of the Human Torch was great. And then also,
that was fun. You know what? I'll give it to them. That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. And then also having Gambit in the movie was also fun. Channing Tatum coming through. It was amazing. If you hadn't seen it, you've had enough time. Sorry. Spoilers. But anyway, Deadpool comes in, exchanges text box. People are finding cool ways to bend and break it. So if you exchange the text box with a creature with Myriad, which is one of the cool, unique interactions, that Myriad actually has a crazy ruling. It creates token copies of the creature, but it doesn't create token copies of the creature as it currently exists. It creates token copies of the creature in its original form. So when you swing with Deadpool, the 2 copies that you create, they're going to come in with that exchange, the text box text. And so you get to create, you basically get to fire off 2 more shots with 2 new legendary Deadpools, and exchange those text box, and then those creatures the Deadpools immediately die. But then now your opponents are saddled with 2 more creatures that say at the beginning of your upkeep, lose 3 life. And then with the, pay 3, sacrifice, each other player draws. So there are some really cool interactions here. Now, do I think this is cEDH viable? ? Potentially. You don't get many.
I saw some people on Reddit saying like it goes in World Gorger.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't think this is a commander for I don't think this is a cEDH commander by any means. It doesn't inherently draw cards or create some sort of infinite loop on its own with one other card. I think those are pretty much the I don't know. There are 3 defining characteristics that I like to see in commanders. Either they loop with something in a 2-card combo, they are a mana outlet like Thrasios, or they just have tons of value stapled to them like Tymna, right? So,
well, speaking of Thrasios, another thing I saw being talked about on Reddit with this card is that if you're playing one of those popular decks that involve a partner commander,
okay,
you can, essentially take one of those cards out of rotation, right?
Yep.
By exchanging text box.
Oh, whoa. So it
like all of a sudden, they're depending on being able to use Thrasios, for his card drawing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you just take that away.
Yep. Yeah. And you take the partner away too. So when it dies, it doesn't get the opportunity. Well, it is one of your commanders.
No, the partner, I think when it changes to a different zone.
Yeah. You still get the option to, because it'll be in the graveyard and then you'll get the option to send it back to the zone. I thought you could that'd be sweet if you could just completely take a commander out of the game or take one of the partners out of the game. No, yeah. The thing is this is basically a Rakdos clone that we just don't have any of that right now. So yeah, you get to steal. Not only is it a clone, you just get to completely steal the text box, and then your opponent loses that effect or whatever. So I think, yeah, this is a really great option for decks that didn't have anything like that before. Like Jund decks probably. I don't know if many Jund decks actually play this. I don't know. It really depends how highly you value clones and memes and Deadpool.
Yeah, no, I think bottom line though, it's a good effect that is going to find a home, just probably not in the command zone.
Right. Yeah, this is a 99 card for sure. It's not in 5 colors. 5-color decks. Phyrexian Metamorph is probably just the cream of the crop with that. But yeah, it seems good. It seems good and it seems fun. I'm going to build the hell out of this as a commander because it seems really kooky and I'm sure I can Rube Goldberg the hell out of it. So the rest of the secret layer drop. Now, this is what I was talking about when you make a secret layer drop. Yeah, cool. We have Deadpool, a mechanically unique card that does crazy, outrageous things. Now we actually have value packed into this drop, where before we didn't have a Deadpool riding a unicorn Deadly Rollick, but we do now, and it's awesome. The thing is that this is probably the chase card for the drop. And it's
until we find out what the secret card is going to be, because the bonus card is going to be sick for this, probably, right?
I would imagine, yeah. I would imagine that they're going to reward the players who reward the people who bought into this. Fingers crossed, I bought into it. But yeah, right away you get your value in one card for the whole drop. Deadly Rollick, Deadly Rollick's like a $40 card. So
yeah, and I think we were saying before the podcast that the Saw in Half art, it seems to be like it's going to be the premier art for that people want.
Right. Yeah. And so Saw in Half, these are all cards that are going to go, that will go in your Deadpool deck if you build it. So great. Awesome. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for doing that. The Saw in Half is also a really, I think, cool way to get more text box exchanges, with Deadpool. So I like that a lot. The Saw in Half is also not a particularly weak card, or is it, and it's about a $5 card in outside of this. So this is probably going to be the foil version or the non-foil version, but this Deadpool version is probably going to be somewhere near 20, would be my guess at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. We have a Blasphemous Act as well. Another, I've seen Blasphemous Act played in cEDH. Right now, it's really good. So Blasphemous Act, he's got the Thanos gauntlet, the Infinity Gauntlet, and just snapping his fingers, and the Earth is exploding. He's sitting on the moon. So it's pretty sweet. The flavor text is, you might be wondering why I've killed the Marvel Universe yet again, but the real question is, how am I breathing on the moon? So,
yay, it's clever, and it's meta.
Yeah.
On brand.
Yeah, this is, and then the last thing is a Vandal Blast, and he's with a flamethrower between his legs, burning a Black Lotus, so Black Lotus artwork on a card, this will be the closest I ever get to that, ever. So I'm glad I'll have...
I know you can still get the Deckmasters Black Lotus. The Magic Con, probably.
Hopefully it's not too expensive.
It was like a $30 card last time.
Yeah. I'll probably pick one of those up if I see it again.
Yeah, you should. I regret last year at 2 years ago at Vegas.
2 years.
Not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the flavor text on this one.
Like I saw one at the beginning of the weekend and I was like, oh, I'll come back for it.
Yeah.
And then no, sold out.
No, it's probably double the price now, which still, hey, that's a $60 Black Lotus artwork. So worth it. You can just tell your friends you have a Black Lotus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The flavor text on Vandal Blast. Look at me. I'm Chandra Nalar. I like that a lot. I think this is great. The whole drop, like viable commander cards across the board. So this is really like hats off to you, Wizards of the Coast. This one's good. This is a good one. Now,
good job, guys.
Yep. I don't like the Fortnite-ification of Magic the Gathering, but of IPs, I don't know. When it's done well, it looks like this, and it feels good. When it's done really poorly, it's noticeable, glaringly noticeable. So yeah, get out there. If this comes out on Friday, but as of Wednesday, April 2nd, there are still some foil versions available. So check out secretlair.wizards.com and see if this Deadpool Secret Lair is still available for you. Get your hands on one because it's going to be valuable. All right. Flash, since the last we spoke, we saw a few more Tarkir cards coming out, and the set looks busy. It looks very busy. It
does.
You know, there's a lot going on. Last week, I talked about a few of the cards that I believe will be cEDH viable. Since then, we haven't really gotten any additional cEDH viable cards. Like we talked about Clarion Conqueror, Voice of Victory, Nature's Rhythm, which I still haven't gotten your thoughts on. Have you seen that card?
I haven't. What is it?
It's X and 2 green. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less. Put it on.
Oh, yes. Well, continue reading it. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. It's a sorcery, but then you shuffle, and then it has Harmonize X and 4 green mana. So, which allows you to cast it from the graveyard. Basically, flashback, but you can tap a creature to reduce the cost of the spell by its power. So, it's Finale of Devastation without the upside of being able to give creatures haste and +X+X, but it is basically an improved Tooth and Nail, which I've considered running, especially since I play a combo deck that is based on 2 creatures being on the battlefield at the same time. So maybe that's for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth playtesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've taken Invasion of Ikoria out of pretty much all of my lists now in favor of this. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, Invasion of Ikoria was a little limited, where like the non-human text was, or you have to like tutor a non-human. You know, like notably, like the only Grand Abolisher effect that is not human is Kutsil. So I really like Kutsil. You know, like that would be one of the targets that I would tutor for as I'm like going for a win attempt, but most of those types of effects are humans, and so this Nature's Rhythm, I do think this is going to be valuable. There are a lot of tutor to the battlefield cards in the game today, so when you're making your choices, you know, like, do you want Court of Calling, do you want Finale? I still think Finale is like a better option because you can search.
Yeah, I mean, because Finale is potentially a finisher. Especially if you have infinite mana, then any creature in your deck just kind of helps you finish. Yeah,
and like Finale Devastation can search the graveyard too. So if on the stack someone flashes in an opposition agent, you can dodge it completely by grabbing the creature in your graveyard instead. So Nature's Rhythm, not dodging. You are not dodging. So yeah, Voice of Victory. People are talking about this being like an auto include for white decks. And while I do see it, this, you know, if you're also in green and you have Gaia's Cradle, this actually becomes like a pretty big boost to Gaia's Cradle since it has Mobilize too. But I'm not quite seeing it in the same light. I do have a little I don't know. I am usually when people jump on board something so quick, I have a bit of apprehension. You know, I like to be the
healthy skepticism.
Yes, that's the right words for it. I'm a skeptic for Voice of Victory. If you, dear listener, can justify Voice of Victory being in every white deck out there, please leave a comment below on the YouTube channel. Clarion Conqueror talked a little bit about that, but yeah, there's all these cool new cards which do look to be cEDH viable. Now the set as it looks for the limited experience, I truly wonder how it'll play. A lot of people are going to find out if they haven't already at the pre-release. I'm not sure if pre-release is this weekend or if it was last weekend, but this is all about to hit Arena. This is all about to hit everything. So get out there, check out your content creators, Arena content creators like Covert Go Blue, Swayze, even Ash Lizzle. They're going to be playing the heck out of these cards. So you'll get a good idea of how they work. All right. Let's get into our interview with Atlas. Flash, anything you want to say?
Oh, hell yeah.
Anything you want to say to Atlas?
No, I think naming him the share of cEDH, I think is sufficient.
Yeah, the voice of our generation. All right, let's get right into it. Boof. All right, everybody, welcome to this week's main subject. We have Atlas Kulish on the show. Say hello to the people, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly.
Yep. Yeah, you got it.
All right, awesome. Atlas, it's so great to have you always on the show. Today, really, we're just gonna dive right into it. Atlas, what's wrong? What's wrong, man? What's wrong with the world? Why does cEDH suck right now?
Oh man, there are a bunch of different factors, but the main piece that I'm having an issue with right now is definitely Flash enablers.
You know, it almost became obvious that this was the issue when you changed your name on Discord to ban Born Upon a Wind.
Oh my gosh. I was just so over. It's kind of a meme now, but now it's still there for sure. Just because I do think that the Flash enablers are probably the current biggest problem in the format and one of the most notable causes of the current like stale, slow meta that everybody's complaining about.
Yeah, that is one of the most common things that I hear from not only just like the community, but also from content creators where they're just like, this mid-range hell sucks. Like everyone's got their eyes on like Ristic Study and like those type, like and Smothering Tithe. I've heard a couple times, but really it's just the mid-range madness maybe is what I call it. But
I like the name better. I like that name better.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's not like
it's not negative. Like
no, yeah, it's just I prefer alliterations.
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah, well, there's that, and like mid-range stuff has a place too, right? It doesn't all have to be turbo. It doesn't all have to be mid-range. It should be a diverse meta.
Yeah, like I think it's more my play style as it stands since I'm playing things like Helga and Shalai Pilar.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's where the deck thrives. Like, but it gets such a bad rap because extending the game, or well, I would say not even attempting to win the game until turns 8 or 9 is actually sort of killing the format in a way.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I think that. We can get into specifics later, but I do think that Flash is a big part of that.
Yeah. Well, everyone wants to have big, chonky value pieces.
Oh, for sure.
Like all the time.
I'm the biggest offender in that regard. I love value engines, right?
Yeah.
This is my thing.
Well, that the Justin tournament, the one last one I was at, and I remember walking past the final table and seeing your board state versus everyone else's board state, and you had like 11 non-land permanents. It was when you were playing against Yuriko, and they had like a pretty decent amount of pressure on the table.
Yeah, they did.
And I watched for like 5 minutes, but I saw your board state, and I just leaned over to somebody, and I was just like, "This game's already over." I was like, You don't like to see a board state like that on Atlas's side. Like,
yeah, well, the problem now is that like everybody has board states like that, and that's all anyone's shooting for, right?
Yeah.
So there's no one's trying to apply pressure any longer. They're just there to deploy value engines as well, which is fine, but that's what leads to like those massive slogs of like 2-3 hour games when everyone's trying to do the same thing, and all of it is just what I call hyper mid range, which is like more or less a control centric strategy.
Yeah. Let's get to the root cause. Like when this started happening was more than likely when the ban announcement happened and we lost Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, Dockside. Nadu, good riddance, but like everything else led to less pressure on the game because before you were wary about building board states because of how easily punishable like Dockside, like how easily you could be punished by Dockside.
Yeah.
And that was my nightmare. I was playing things like Stony Silence and, Oof all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But those, a lot of times, I think, especially towards the end of that like pre-ban era, like those cards weren't even like realistically feasible to run because most other decks, like it comes down to that idea of like if two decks at the table are trying to do the same thing, that strategy, one of those strategies is dramatically more likely to win than the 3 and 4 players who are doing something different. One of them is likely playing a counter strategy, right? So, but it's like the problem is when everyone at the table is executing a Dockside loop, or 2-3 players are, one Collect Reef is not going to hold it down because everyone wants to remove it except for you. And if they don't remove it, even if it throws the game to somebody who's not the person who's deleting the snacks piece, then that player, like if they don't remove it, you will just win the game for free because your snacks piece stops them all.
Yeah, and it's almost like, and we've also seen a pretty dramatic downtick in clones too, because Dockside doesn't exist anymore. We don't have like the self bounce, like Into the Flood Maw. When I first saw it and I first read it, I was just like, that's not a good card because it doesn't bounce Dockside back to your hand.
Yeah.
It returns opponents things, but like the idea was like when a Dockside lands and it creates treasures, you stop whatever they're going to do so that you clone the Dockside and pressure for your own type of win.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And or you press for your own type of win. So that announcement, I think, was for a certain demographic of players very exciting, where it was just like,
oh, I was thrilled. I someone who likes to play the slower, longer, grindy games, I was thrilled. I was like, oh, like this is a little like inconvenient because I have to redevelop some strategies here, but it was fine because I'm looking to play. My deck wants to play those games, right? But I think it also disenfranchised a lot of players who got into the format in part because of the large splashy plays that Dockside enabled, Crypt, JLo, things like that. And there's a history lesson there that we can go into if you want to, but like a lot of players got into the format after Dockside was already a big part of it.
Yeah. So let's get into the first major point you want to make about cEDH and where it's at currently. It's the current health of the format.
Yeah. Oh, I do not think it is good. I would agree with most players in that assessment. Well, maybe not most. I can't speak for everyone, but a large number of players for sure seem to be expressing discontent with the way that the format has slowed down to just this egregious pace, and they're calling it the draw meta right now, where everything's a draw at time, where everyone's IDing, and it's just like nobody's winning games anymore outside of just like non-games, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to win a non-game. That feels bad for everyone. So at present, it feels like most games are ending up as draws, right? And I would agree with that. That's been my experience for a large part of it, is that there's no real like turn the corner moment for control anymore. There's no real way for Turbo to like super get under mid-range any longer. And so we end up with these just like untenuous board states where everyone is, like we said, developing an engine, sitting behind that engine and just waiting and sitting there and waiting for someone to mess up, which is it's cool in theory. But even I get tired of it when it's like, okay, I've done my thing. I've put like Rhystic Smothering Tithe on the battlefield by turn 4, turn 5, whatever. Somebody shot a Owen attempt. It got countered by the table. And now everyone has their Rhystic Smothering, and we're just sitting here waiting. 80 minutes rolls around. All right. Well, does anyone have anything? Active player. Okay. Active player is going to cast silence. Okay. Counter silence. All right. Counter. Okay. Counter. Somebody's drawn a couple more cards. Okay. Cast Born Upon a Wind. In response to Born Upon a Wind, cast Valley Flood Caller. Like, and then it's like one of those resolves. Okay. Cast something to cast this rock because I don't have anything left to stop the silence. But now that I have VFC, I can counter your cast this rock to trigger everyone else's Ristic. They feed into each other. Somebody else finds something. Born resolves. Yeah, and it's just this terrible, awful, parasitic, toxic game, right?
Yeah. No, that's it sounds, just the description, my body language probably changed a little bit because it's just you're right. It's not a driven strategy. It's wait and see. And I think it was three of the 4 rounds of Swiss at that last tournament were draws.
Yeah.
And the only that's so ridiculous now to look back on it and be like, I think I performed pretty well. I got top 16.
Yeah.
And, very small event. Hey, I top 16 with Helga. What's up?
We take that.
What's up? And then, it's but then looking back on it, it's my one non-draw was a loss. And I got top 16 with 3 points.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a side effect of a small tournament, right? But
yeah,
it's something similar too, where it's I played at Fishbowl and the draw stats on that event were awful. I think the first 3 or so rounds had a 33% draw rate. And a lot of tournaments right now are having about a 1/3 draw percentage. It's gross.
Yeah, 2 of the games that I uniquely remember it being 2 Ristic studies. I mean, I'm clearly off meta. There's another player who's off meta, and the other 2 are Atraxa and I think it was Thrasios or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking at it, and I'm seeing this these 2 decks just basically have both Ristic studies out and just yep, keep picking up cards, try to jam win attempts, stop each other.
Yeah.
And then one turn takes 15 minutes, and that's a significant chunk of the clock,
especially when nothing happens at the end of that turn and you're right at time. You're oh, well, nobody actually got there, because by the time you finally managed to resolve everything, either everyone's under a silence that people just couldn't counter, or the player whose turn it is, who has the chance to finally do something under their silence, doesn't have the resources anymore because they were too busy stopping themselves from getting killed in response.
Yeah. That is the proper behavior, is to try to stop a silence.
Yeah,
but it's all the contributing pieces outside of that. And yeah.
I mean, and I'm, don't get me wrong, Ristic Study and those style of effects, Ristic effects, like Smothering Tithe, Esper Sentinel, things like that, those are definitely also to blame, right? They're also contributing factors. But I think what we have to look at here is why the meta is so unhealthy now as opposed to before, is a couple of things. But in addition to the Ristic Study effects, we now have consistent, decent access to very powerful flash enablers that allow people to play the game as if it's their turn always, right? And we can break down a little bit further what some of those the individual issues with flash enablers are right now. But for the most part, it's that in broad terms, it's that you draw a lot of cards and now you can cast all those cards on somebody else's turn in response to a win attempt. And now there's Smothering Tithes and Lothos and things like that also give you the mana to do this. So it's not even just holding up mana to do these things. It's we're making mana as we go.
Right.
And all these effects are fine and interesting in nutshells, right? Like individually you stick them in a vacuum, you're that's a really powerful but kind of cool effect, right? And then you put it all together and you end up right where we are.
Yeah, you're right. There are a few cards even I've taken a keen liking to High Fate Trickster.
Yeah. That card's great. Super powerful.
In a vacuum.
It's
very great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But then you start playing on other people's turns into Ristic Studies. Yeah, like you said, into Smothering Tides, and it's just now it's trigger. And then it's do you pay for this? Do you pay for this? Do you pay for this? I'm telling you, those seconds of asking those questions and deciding, it adds up. It is minutes.
Well, yeah,
that just shaved off.
There's 7 game actions put on the stack, and each one of those game actions causes 3 triggers, and each of those triggers takes 2 seconds to resolve. You're looking at minutes right there.
Well, yeah, and then each one requires you to go priority. Yeah, even if you do it that fast, it's still 4 seconds, 5 seconds for every trigger. So Priority.
Yep, sometimes someone's tanking because like the trigger really matters. There's a game action. And then you get into the politics of like, okay, well, I won't pay for this, so you can do this, and we can sequence like that to stop someone, which is also correct competitive gameplay for this format. But it just drags out.
That's so interesting. Like to look at a card in a vacuum and say, wow, that's really great, that's really powerful, and that's an awesome effect, and then just start setting it next to certain like other pieces that add and compound, because we're looking at it like time is like the currency that we're dealing with right here.
Yeah.
So like having a 90-minute, sometimes I've seen less. I've seen 80-minute clocks too.
Yeah, that's pretty standard right now. The standard is 80.
Yeah. So 80-minute clock, and then you're just like, oh yeah, everything adds up. Compounding effects. We're at turn 2, we have a Heuristic Study, and we have a couple of an Esper Sentinel, and then turn 3, we're looking at our first Smothering Tithe. And now the game, now that those things add up with every single play action that you're put into, maybe we get to turn 7.
and right now with the way the game is, like with everyone playing mid range, you aren't doing anything until 6 or 7, really.
Yeah.
Just like, but that said, like when the game doesn't get started rolling until like 30 minutes, because those first 4 or 5 turns, everyone's deploying these things, and now this effect, okay, that's fine, easy to resolve. The second effect, okay, it takes a little bit longer, and now there's more resources flowing around the table. And then they just keep stacking, and they keep stacking, which is what's contributing to, as they're calling it, mid-range hell, but we'll call it mid-range madness.
Woo!
That's the contributing factor there. So
yeah. Okay. So time, all these seconds, precious seconds, minutes, adding up to make for a very draw heavy experience in cEDH due to basically, the access to flash enablers like Born Upon a Wind.
Yes. Born Upon a Wind, Valley Flood Caller, and High Fate Trickster are the 3 that I'm concerned about at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that being said, what changes do you foresee, or what changes coming from an incredibly experienced tournament like player, cEDH, TEDH player, what type of changes would you implement to like correct the current course?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. Primarily, I think the first thing that we need to do, which won't happen for a while, and unfortunately, like I have no way of knowing, but I fear that this is not on the horizon for us, is I think we need to get rid of what I've termed the flashers, which are those 3 cards we mentioned earlier, which are Born Upon a Wind, Valley Flood Caller, and High Fate Trickster. And I call them that because they are flash enablers that are relatively all-encompassing, that can be cast at flash speed, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I think that those cards are such an issue is because they can be deployed at flash speed, which is cool in a vacuum. But when you look at it a little bit, like,
let's just say in standard, super cool.
Right? Yeah, it's neat. Yeah. Like I get to cast my 1 spell on your end step that I'm supposed to cast on my turn to eke out a little bit more advantage.
Yeah.
But in formats where Smothering Tithe, the Heuristic Study, Seedborn Muses, all those things are super prevalent, very strong, it gets really, really problematic, because what we're basically looking at is the fact that you can play the game at instant speed from instant speed. And that's what the real problem is. Because looking back, like Vidalcan Ori's been around forever. I think Leyline of Anticipation's been around even longer than that.
Yeah.
Those cards have never really seen a ton of play. They've never been super duper popular. There's always been like a couple like brewers or decks that have wanted that type of effect, right? And even Rogsai was like, there was a little bit there just before the bans where Leyline of Anticipation was seeing some play in Rogsai lists.
Right, because the potential of opening your hand, like your opening hand having it, is a great bonus.
And there's like percentage increases to like being able to pitch it to Force of Will and stuff like that. So there are minor upsides, but they weren't playing Vidalcan Ori still. Yeah. And the reason that these cards weren't seeing play is because you can't deploy them at instant speed, right? Now it's really cool that you can, but the reason that flash enablers cannot be deployed at instant speed historically is in order to allow your opponents the opportunity to try and play around that effect, right? And what these flashers do is break basic intrinsic principles of the game.
Right. I think that's my basic understanding of the game in general, right?
Yeah.
Is you have this base set of rules, which I hope if you're listening to this podcast, you understand, but you have the base set of rules, and every card, the text allows you to warp the rules
just a little bit,
you know?
Just enough.
But these start warping the rules very dramatically.
Yeah. I think the dramatic part is really what the issue is, because there are really cool effects that can tweak aspects of the game, such as like Agatha's Soul Cauldron lets you spend mana of any color to activate creature abilities, right? That's super neat. More expensive versions of that effect, like Chromatic Aura, you can spend mana of any color, like period, right?
Yep.
So these effects are really strong and very unique, and they're pretty substantially like game changing, right? But they don't like change basic principles of the game, right? And Flash enablers just intrinsically do that. They say, all right, there's this mechanic called timing restrictions. All of your spells have timing restrictions. All your cards have timing restrictions. You can take these actions at these times based upon what is printed on the piece of paper. And the flashers take that and they turn it on its head, because now you no longer have to cast your spells following those timing restrictions, right? Which is neat. But the problem is that they themselves don't follow any timing restrictions, which means that when we're playing into this Rhystic Study meta or whatever, you can draw a Born Upon a Wind or tutor for a Born Upon a Wind or whatever, and you just sit there. And so you just sit there and you sit there and you may have interaction, you may not, but you just wait until realistically time.
So or someone presents a win condition,
and then you shoot yours and go over the top, right? And I think one of the issues there is that they encourage like poor play patterns, like similar to Dockside, right? That a card also encouraged relatively poor play patterns of just like push as fast as I can. Once again, that spell was pretty game breaking. It warped intrinsic principles of the game, where it like directly punished your opponents for developing board states that kept up with you, which there's always supposed to be a sort of a give and a take in games of Magic the Gathering, right? And so I think like if we're looking from a competitive perspective at what cards should be banned in cEDH and TEDH, there are two types of bans that should be occurring from my perspective. There's tier 1 bans, which are cards that inherently just mutilate the principles of the game. Things like Dockside Extortionist, the Flashers, Paradox Engine is a great example, because like casting spells should not gain you resources. They should always detract resources. There might be some amount of a refund on a spell, right? Like a Birgi effect or like a Medallion effect or something.
Yeah, so Rite of Flame.
Yeah.
I mean, it costs you a card out of your hand. You're sacrificing card advantage.
You're going up mana, but Dark Rituals, same thing. Like you're gaining mana, but you're losing a card in order to do it, right? And so like those effects are very, very strong when they're 1 for 1.
Yep.
And Paradox Engine is just this static like rule change for one specific player that says every time I cast a spell, I'm gaining resources, right?
Yeah.
And there's effectively no build around conditions. There's nothing for it. And so similar things with the Flashers, right? There's effectively no build around conditions for these cards. You just get to play whatever the best strategy is, slot them in, and then take maximum advantage of not having to play Magic the Gathering and not having to have a basic understanding of the way the game works. Like basic understanding, sure.
Because it does. Like that just wipes the slate clean of like any foundational rules. Those sort of just clean slate. Now you get to you're playing the game.
Every turn is your turn.
Yes. Yeah. You're playing the game. While yes, you're still maintaining like the rules of priority, right? To say like, hey, like, are you passing priority? Okay, my time to go. Cast. But there's no like, you can't play lands. Sure. We haven't seen that card yet.
I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. You can play lands at instant speed or on any player's turn.
Yeah, wait till they print their new crop rotation effect that I'm sure is coming out soon, right?
yeah, something like that. But those cards essentially just wipe the slate clean of like what timing restrictions mean to the game.
Yeah, and that's I think very detrimental overall, right? Like nobody likes seeing cards that allow players to capitalize and win games while not understanding how a game works at a base, like the most fundamental levels, like very well, right? I'm not saying that like players who play these spells are bad at the game by any means, right? Like they're great cards. We all play Dockside. Like play these cards.
Yes.
They're insanely busted.
I was gonna say exactly. They're literally the best cards that you can have access to.
Absolutely.
It's like.
Yeah. There's
no one's at fault.
No,
they were created.
Yeah, exactly. The cards. It's the cards, right?
Yeah.
These cards should not have been printed. Same thing with like I think I think the idea is like Rhystic Study is like an insanely busted Magic card, which it definitely is.
Very strong.
But that would fall into a tier 2 ban, right? Which is going back to the tier 1, tier 2 bans, which is where which is a secondary level of ban where you can evaluate a card because it's actually just too strong, right? And though there are cards that definitely deserve to be banned from that perspective as well, right? Like Nadu's actually a tier 2 ban in that regard. That card is just, it doesn't violate any core mechanics of the game, not directly, like in essence it does, but not directly.
Just the amount of card advantage it could generate
it's just absurd.
Too strong.
It's just too much, right? Yeah. But like you have to use other cards to abuse this card so it doesn't abuse itself. There is technically a limitation on it, but the effect was just too good, and there were a multitude of ways that I think the community has already agreed that card could have been scaled back to be very similar and still incredibly powerful.
Yeah, Arena has altered it to make sense, like to like it has scaled down in power where it's not each creature, it's just you get 2 triggers per turn,
which is fine. Like that's still a very powerful effect, right?
Two cards per each player's turn.
Yeah. So, and then I think and then tier 2 bans also have the upside of like frequently there are new effects that could be printed or old cards that could be unbanned in order to check that style of effect. So we talk about like, oh, we want to punish the Rhystic meta, Orcish Bowmasters. That card rarely punishes the Rhystic Study player. It's always shooting the green player's stuff.
Yep.
You and I can both relate on that one.
I am a dork player.
My elves have died so many times for blue farm sin.
And they're like, oh, I guess that's the only thing I can kill. They don't even look at life totals.
No, life totals aren't real, right?
Yeah.
It's just a resource. Tax that resource. But Rhystic Study doesn't actually inherently violate principles of the game. It's just a tax effect.
And it's a responsibility thing, too. Exactly. It's just like, if you want to be a responsible player, but the way that the tier 1 bans work, it's just like in conjunction with cards that are considered for tier 2 bans.
Yes.
Then it.
Yeah. But like tier 2, like Hullbreacher, Leovold, those are effective cards that could very much punish the Rhystic Study meta, right? Where everyone's just trying to draw a bunch of cards. Those are definitely viable considerations for unbans. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't be. Hullbreacher, in my opinion, still might be a little bit too strong. Still maybe a tier 2 ban itself. But like Leovold, it's 3 mana, sorcery speed. It's all pipped. You can only play it in certain strategies. There's a lot of and from my perspective, it's legendary. It's a lot of perspective reasons to unban that card to try and check the meta a little bit, which is kind of interesting. But all that aside, I think that it really just boils down to having to evaluate different, the way that cards, even if they're considered inconsequential, which is one of my fears with the flashers, is no one's talking about how the draw rate has gone up dramatically since we lost all of the breakthrough cards, Mana Crypt, Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus. Those cards just allow you to generate absurd resource very fast, push through. So the cards were seeing play and more play, but they were more or less along the lines of more niche strategies, right? If you're playing Necropotence, you want to play the 2 to 3 of this effect, right? If you want to play 1 to 2 of this effect. I just think that removing Rhystic Study removes the ability for slower strategies to succeed in a multiplayer format.
Yeah, I think it's a false flag right now to fly that you are Rhystic Study is the card that needs to be banned. I think the points you've made today are the flash enabling, the erasure of all timing restrictions, cards that enable those types of things, those need a closer look, even though they're enabling, more Rhystic Study, more Rhystic Study triggers to go on the stack. Sure. Right. But I think people are looking at the Rhystic Study as generating card advantage when no, it's the ability for players to play on everybody's turn is generating so many more triggers.
It's turning win attempts into interaction itself, which is part of what the core of this draw problem is, right? Someone will say, okay, well, I have 1 Pact of Negation, and player A is presenting a win with a Silence or a Grand Abolisher. We know they have a win, right? Player B says, well, I don't have any interaction, and we can even neglect Rhystic Study at this point, right? We'll just say, I have 0 interaction here. But you know what I can do? I can present a win over the top. If you agree not to counter my win attempt, I will present a draw. And that means that player A now has to cede a draw to players B, C, and D, or else they lose the game. And that's incredibly efficient, right? I was doing that long before flash enablers were a thing,
right?
Just because sometimes you end up in these positions, and I think that's one of the upsides about tournament cEDH is that you can ID matches when you get to these we call them king-making situations, but I think in tournament EDH, there really isn't such a thing because you're playing to whatever that draw state is, right? At least in the Swiss rounds, and untimed rounds are their own thing. But but I think that's honestly like a really interesting way to do it, right? It's like, well, I can counter this win attempt on player A's turn, but player B also is guaranteed win on their turn. And without flash enablers, you have to either decide to fire that counterspell or you have to try and negotiate with somebody, right? Which I do think that negotiation is a basic part of the format, and that it's the format would be lost without politics in some regard.
It is probably the great, like, that's the learning curve with, I think, tournament Magic versus just like playing with your buds and stuff like that. You all have your own inside jokes and stuff like that. You go to a tournament and you need to develop your negotiation skill, like your skills in negotiating how to achieve certain results within the game. So like the politics and the skill to manipulate or read body language or whatever
it happens, like, whatever your form of politics are, right?
Yeah.
It's just, politics are just communication at that point. But there are bunches of different ways to do that. But yeah, it's like when I can say, well, I don't have any way to stop this because my deck isn't built to stop this, but I can make sure that everyone gets a point here by punishing the player for having the ability to actually win the game.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right? I think, and so like, once again, if you like contemplating banning like Archivist Ogma or Talion or whatever like the draw engines are, because scary draw engines, right? It's scary Smothering Tithe. 30,000 treasures does you nothing if you can't cast any spells to win you the game and your deck doesn't play interaction, right?
Yeah. Well, and outside of those, the restrictions for drawing a card, restrictions for searching your library, all those things are written plainly on cards, and it is the player's decision to walk through or cross that line.
Right.
So like with Talion, they choose to. You can look at your cards. You have the information present on whether or not you would like to have them draw a card. And the same deal with Ristic Study is written right there. Would you like, how many resources you have? Are you going to pay them? It's a level of like greed or whatever. And,
sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But once again, it comes down to like a skill-based orientation of calculating the risk. Is feeding this card worth it, right? Yeah. Some decks are going to be incredibly fast, like Rogsai or Rogfast or whatever, and they're going to play Ristic Study. And if you feed them the card, are you feeding them like, is it worth it for you to feed them that card while they only have 2 cards in their hand? When you know that they're probably not going to be able to contribute much to the table living another rotation. They're probably going to try and kill you with that extra card, as opposed to feeding something like, I don't know, like mono blue Teferi or whatever, right? Like those like lower Tivit, I think is probably a better example that's more relevant. Feeding them that card, yes, they can definitely try and kill you with that card, but also, like, if you're passing turn, like they only have 2 cards in their hand, they're probably playing more interaction than like that Rogthrast deck, right?
Yeah.
And so like feeding them that card might not be as much of a problem. And so like weighting that, and like if there are 2 Ristic Studies, do you pay for neither of them? Do you pay for one? How many cards does one player have? Like those are all skill checks and opportunities for skill expression because you can play around them, right? Going back to the flashers, and one of the reasons that they're so broken is there's very little, if any, opportunity to play around those cards. Like the fact that they can just come out of nowhere because someone passed with open mana is absurd, right? You can like turbo decks with nothing to do will pass with 5 open mana, and you'll 4 open mana. Don't be scared of Adnos, but like you have to be like, okay, well, they might be able to like draw a bunch of cards here and try and win the game on their turn. But if I play correctly, like I can probably find a way to stop them on their turn. They have to storm into this Ristic or this Talion or whatever. Adnos has a life requirement, so there is a build condition for it, right? Versus like the flashers, and you just go, well, anyways, my Thassa's Oracle combo is just instant speed now, and I'm passing with Born Upon a Wind and one of those pieces in hand, and some medium even way to draw cards, whether it be Fairy Mastermind or something. Everyone else draws a couple cards, I draw a couple cards, and suddenly I have the combo sitting on this 5 mana ready to just pop off and kill you at the moment I think that everyone's out of interaction, right? There's no way to play around that realistically that is based purely on skill expression. Other than the fact that saying like, this card is in their deck, I know it's in their deck, man, I can never tap out or I'll die, which I'll give you the mic back here in a sec, but like that is very reminiscent of the Flash meta of 2016,
where Flash Hulk was a huge problem.
Yep.
So
Yeah, no, the longest turn I've ever had in my life, and the only reason that I'm making this point is because of how valuable time is to in a clock format. So like the longest turn was literally playing Helga, and I had developed a board state where I had Helga, High Fae Trickster, Seedborn Muse, and Kinnan, and
oh god,
I was just like, yeah, pass the turn.
Oh my god.
I was like, yeah, take it away. Next turn, upkeep, play. And like go. And then as I'm like casting cards and generating card advantage, like they're trying to interact, and I'm just like, nope.
Yep, over the top.
Yep. And then all of a sudden you got 27 freaking triggers on the stack, and you're like, all right, can we remember, it's like you try to like put placeholder cards in place of certain
trigger cards.
Yeah. No, it's almost like someone would make a killing if they were just making trigger tokens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a couple myself. Golden Sabretooth makes them. I think a couple of other artists also make them.
Mm-hmm.
They're really useful. They're handy, right?
Yeah.
Because the stacks get so long and convoluted, because there are so many ways to just continue to play the game as if it was your turn on someone else's turn. If it's just a Rhystic Study, you're going to hit rocks, you're going to hit lands, you're going to hit sorceries that you can't use to find more interaction, to find more win attempts.
Yeah, and not only is it like harder to win through the clock meta, and it's also just in general, like those long turns, disrespectful to everybody's time, right? Because as a round goes further, because this is the last turn. Clock has run. This is the last turn. Resolve the stack. Game ends, right?
Yeah.
Well, then the stack just keeps building and it keeps going.
We're just going to keep pushing, chucking the most random, uncalculated attempts out there because this game's going to be a draw or I'm about to lose. So I have nothing. There's no reason for me to not.
Yeah. And people are continuing to be, like hanging out in this room, just waiting for this one game. And then they come over, they walk over, they check in on the game and they're like, oh, okay. Like this is the last turn. Walk away. 20 minutes later, they come back. They're like, are we firing the next round? And it's like, no, they're still playing on the same stack that they were at when you last left.
Yeah.
It's like they're still Rhystic Study, Smothering Tide triggers, all this stuff. People just keep trying to win. And a lot of that, like that turn in general, like was mostly due to High Fae Trickster. Or it's just like I kept putting...
because if you didn't have that card, even if you drew all those cards out for 680 or whatever,
the stack would not have even existed.
No.
We would have been like maybe four things deep as you battled a counter spell. But then like
once everyone's out of counter magic, once everyone's out of silences and interactions, instant speed, directly instant speed effects.
Yes.
You're done. And now it's that player's turn and they get to play the game as if it's their turn.
Yes. Yeah.
It's crazy to me how it can be your turn and you're on the defense. In my opinion, I think winning instant speed is fine. It's super cool, but there should be restrictions that go into it that are inherent to you having to build your deck in that manner, right? I was winning at instant speed before Born Upon a Wind was even like a glimmer in the distance.
Emergent
Zone was like the only way to do it.
Yeah, and I've had your Kenrith list just on screen the whole time, but it's like, Kenrith inherently like allows you in some form when Dockside existed. Yeah.
I mean, the most egregious part of that card, I think everyone can agree, is the reanimate effect. And that the only reason that part of the card is just absolutely messed up is because it's instant speed. If it wasn't instant speed, it would literally be Rise from the Grave, and that card is terrible.
Yeah.
It is unplayable.
Now, it's printed on a legendary creature that can sit in the zone and gives you 5 colors, so maybe at some point you could find a way to break it, but it wouldn't be...
I guess I'm bringing my Grand Abolisher back after I got countered.
Yeah, you could only do it on your turn.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that now that we're reading these effects, there are some effects that say you can only do this at sorcery speed, right?
Yeah.
The instant they print a card that says you can ignore that and activates
birthing pods everywhere.
Yeah, birthing pod is everywhere. Whatever that new one, the blue birthing pod for artifacts.
Yeah,
it's like that becomes way more viable because of one card that eliminates the notion that what you thought existed. Like the structure of the rules that you thought existed are now erased.
And I fear that we're not that far off of some similar style of effect, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, like I don't even feel like that effect would be that broken if you had to deploy it at sorcery speed. But the way things are being printed, it'll be something you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to cast this birthing pod and pass. Okay, I'm going to play this one blue instant. It's uncounterable because power creep. And like now I can ignore
that split second.
Yeah, something like that, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, well, I guess I can now just like birthing pod here and blah, 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 blah. Now you're dead.
Yeah, yep. you Birthing Pod for something that untaps it, and then
or even just the Thassa's Oracle that just comes into play, and now you're deconning or something. It's just that style of thing, or that power creep where there's no play around, right? Because I actually think that Born Upon a Wind is an insanely powerful card, right? It's a very power crept version of the Vidalcan Ori style effects. If it was just like an artifact or enchantment, if it was permanent, I would honestly be fine with it. But you have to deploy it on your turn, so you really only get benefit from deploying it early and keeping it around. Yeah. And at that point, it's up to your opponents to remove it, right? There's counterplay involved.
I would say, you're right. Like that's really the only reason that Underworld Breach has been a kind of okay, in the formats, because you deploy it on your turn. Everyone knows you're going for it. Yep. And it's like, okay, interact with it, destroy it, whatever it is.
Whatever
it's very vulnerable.
In response, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the flash enablers that allow you to say, well, I just saw the last Boseiju come out. All right, I'm going to get Underworld Breach right now. Try to go over the top of whatever's happening on the stack.
Yes.
And those effects mean that once the breach even resolves or whatever the thing is, interactions moot at a certain point, because you're going to do this thing. Okay, I'm going to go over the top. Okay, you're going to interact again. I'm going to go over the top.
That's funny that we haven't even heard any rumblings. It's all been Rhystic Study get banned, Smothering Tithe get banned, but we haven't heard any rumblings of Underworld Breach in regard. No.
Well, it's because Underworld Breach is relatively fair. It's insanely powerful, but all things considered, that card is relatively fair. It kills itself at the end step.
Yep.
It has to be deployed on your turn.
But once you erase, once you give it flash,
once you remove timing restrictions on every single card in your deck,
Underworld Breach is now the best card in Magic.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so it magnifies those things. Magnify.
Yeah, and that sort of scales back to a little bit of the history lesson with the flash meta, right? Is the difference in time flash, and then we went into Dockside meta, but which is during the pandemic, and that's when a lot of players really started to flock to the format. So they didn't know it came before Dockside. It was all turbo, all go fast, because Dockside just lets you punish the heck out of your opponents playing the game. Well, before that, we were in a meta that was very similar to this one with Flash, where it's everyone's going to develop their Thrasio or their Tymna or their Rhystic or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're going to sit behind it, and we're going to grind and grind and grind until I have the protected Flash win, or I see somebody tap out, and as soon as all my opponents are tapped out, I'm shooting it, and with one Dispel backup. And at that point, there was less free counter magic, less efficient interaction. So you just go for it, right? Or you could shoot it really early before anyone has something too, because Flash
it was 2 mana,
right? Yeah. I think the difference there, people are saying oh, well, Flash Hulk would be fine because of all the free interaction stuff. I mean, in one sense, yes, but not really. And the reason is because the win conditions. The reason the flashers right now are so broken is because the win conditions have also scaled in efficiency. Mm-hmm. Flash Hulk was this gigantic package of cards that you had to play, and if you drew one, suddenly your combo may or may not actually work. And so there was all that going on.
Well, you could put the combo together, but there was no protections with it. But now we have efficient enough win conditions now where it's just you can grab literally Viscera Seer, Cauldron Familiar, Samwise Gamgee, and Grand Abolisher.
Yep.
And that is a self-contained win condition right there for 2 mana. Yeah. So if that existed in today's format, it would be a problem. But that's only because it erases the notion of timing restrictions.
Yeah, and that's why Flash itself was banned ages ago, and in so many formats, it's because it was so meta work.
It was literally description. I remember reading the ban, the ban, the cause, and the reasoning for banning it was because this eliminates a lot of timing restrictions.
What's the point of casting a creature on my turn when I can 2 mana cast a creature on your turn?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's upside, right? It kills the creature too, and that's why Flash Hulk became so good. But even before that, Flash was just an absurd Magic the Gathering card, right? It reduced the cast of the creature cost by 2, so you really were just paying the retail cost of the card, plus, and just subbing one of those generic pips for blue, which is nuts in a format where the most powerful thing to do is Shivan Dragon. If you can cast it on someone else's turn while their counterspell is down and give it effective haste, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's in that concept being in a 1v1 20 life format where that first existed. That's so powerful.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it's just that we're no longer in that age.
Yeah, and so now Born Upon a Wind is a similar thing where it's 2 mana, all my spells have flash, and it also replaces itself for God knows what.
I don't know.
The number of times I've been spectating matches at tournaments, and someone goes to time and they go, present my win or don't present my win and try and end my turn. And the player to their left goes, man, I'll cast this Born Upon a Wind.
See if it
see what I get. Does it resolve? Like, I don't have anything. I'm just casting it. And they're like, okay. And then they rip Underworld Breach off the top as non-zero, like a fair number of non-zero.
Yes.
They're like, oh, well, I guess I'm trying to win the game here now because I drew exactly what I needed, like in this permutation or whatever.
30 minutes later.
Yeah. You're like, okay, well, now I'm Myristic and now Myristic. Yeah. Now this and now that. But like the scaling is ban Born Upon a Wind because it is literally just flashed at this point. Like, instead of having to play these hulking like packages that go with Protean, you're instead just playing like super hyper effective win conditions that cost 1 to 2 mana, maybe 3, right? Where you're like, Born Upon a Wind for 2 mana. Resolves, great. I'm gonna cast the Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation at your end step. And now if you fight me, my Rystic's gonna trigger and I can try and defend it on your turn before going to my turn, right? Playing instant speed's cool. Trying to win instant speed's cool. Final Fortune is sick. I love that. I hate that card, but I love that card, right? It's a great card design because you can try and insert yourself to win the game on someone else's end step. But if you mess it up, like there's a penalty, right? You're losing the game. So you better be darn sure that this is your window, right?
Yep.
Like, that's great. That's cool. Tainted Pact it's much lesser now, but at least even before, there was a deck building restriction associated with that. Ad nauseum. If you're not building your deck for it, the card's going to be super medium, right? Unless you're just end stepping it as value, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really where the problem's lying there. Is like the power creep in conjunction with the basic rule breaks of these cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is like, more than anything, it's enlightening because I actually wasn't really sure. Like, I know your name changing to ban Born Upon the Wind on Discord was
signal.
Pretty, it was a pretty big signal to, and then we talked a little bit on the side. You were like, you messaged me just being like, can you do anything about this? I was like, absolutely not. I'm not the right guy, And so, like, I'm glad we sat down. I'm glad we get to talk about these things because if you guys didn't know, at least in the last 6 months, Atlas was ranked as the number 3 player in the world in cEDH. So if anybody has merit and experience in the format to declare for or to push for a ban on certain things that are noticeably breaking the game, like, it's you, Atlas. Like, there are like, we could have other players here and like they would say the same thing. I feel like
I know a number of people who would say that it's the Borns, another people who say the Rystics. Like, there's obviously different schools of thought. I'm just, at least from my perspectives, I've seen way more games go to time and end in a draw in a game that would have just been a draw at time anyways, or present some random unwarranted win over the top of somebody else's something, just off of like a flash enabler, than anything else, right? Like, Rystic, yes, the card is egregious. Yes, Ad nauseum is egregious. Yes, Snack Opponents is egregious. But they've been there forever. Like, it's like saying, from my take, at least as a veteran of the format, I think it's like saying ban Soul Ring, which, like, I don't hate the idea, but you have to actually go out of your way. And when the philosophy of your format is, it's a staple, it's iconic, we're not going to do it. Like, okay, well, then these cards are also versions of staples, iconics. You shouldn't be banning them.
Yeah, bring Mana Crypt back.
Right? Yeah. Like, the unbans are a different discussion, but it's the same thing, right? It's like there are iconic cards where if you're not going to ban certain iconic cards, you can't ban other iconic cards just because you don't like them.
Yeah.
And when there are much more reasonable, if not nuanced bans that could be made, that would much more favorably impact the health of the format.
Yeah, and it has been complete radio silence from the Commander format panel since the announcement of brackets, and like I'm sure it takes time to collect the data necessary to make decisions in that way. Yeah. Like, you can't, we can't make snap decisions, but it would be nice, instead of getting a little comment or a little blurb every 3 months, to maybe get one every few weeks, like, to know that we know that, to basically get the confirmation that they're talking about these things, like, hey, these are the findings from our meeting. Like, just, like Cliff Notes would be awesome on like the Commander format panel meetings. But
was speculated unbans at the end of the month, so we'll see what happens.
Sure.
Leovold, please come off, because I do think Hull Breacher is too strong still.
Yeah.
Once again, Flash breaks the basic mechanics of the game, and I think that putting that mechanic on too many cards is too strong, and Hull Breacher is a great example of that. Card is absurd. Draw hate is great, but I think Leovold would be a much more balanced way to do it, especially because that card has green on it, which if you're looking at the tournament data on like EDH top 16 or whatever, blue farm is just like kind of the best deck in the game right now.
Yeah.
It has been for a while. It will continue to be as long as they don't print good cards with green on them. So please print good cards with green on them.
Green is the weakest color in all of Magic. You heard it here first.
Yeah. I think that, letting blue farm play Hull Breacher is not the move.
Yeah, right. No, the only way that I would think it would be a very pointed attack on like the One Ring and Ristic Studies and stuff like that. And it's like,
it's fine. It's fine. Like it does kind of alleviate the flasher problem, but you're still gonna.
You're bringing wheels back into it, and all of a sudden,
it's a different issue that you're skewing if you're putting something as absurd as Hull Breacher back in. I think that's a very reasonable, very fair. Much as it hurts my heart to say, because I do think playing with the card was so fun. My opponents did not.
Xerus goes back to tier 1. Baby.
Yeah, it's just, it's just a tier 2 ban. Hull Breacher is a tier 2 ban in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think Leovold's fine.
Okay. Well, Atlas, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Of course, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. This has been the MoxStars podcast. If you would like to support the show, if you'd like to follow along for more episodes, you can find us on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms. You can also support us on Patreon. There are links in the description below to find those things. Atlas, what's the next tournament you're going to be at?
I'm actually not sure. I'm taking a break from Tournament Magic for a little bit, mostly because of the meta. But then also, like, I'm just kind of busy with like work and stuff right now. So the next one I'm going to be at, I could not tell you actually.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. All right. The next event is a mystery event. You'll announce it on your social media, I'm sure.
Discord. Yeah.
On Discord. There you go.
Discord, I guess.
All right. We're getting out of here. Final closing statements. This is your last chance, Atlas.
I mean, you know what it's going to be. Ban Born Upon a Win.
Ban Born Upon a Win. Night Guy gonna do. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the MoxStars podcast. Peace.